I chose this image for a couple of reasons. One is that we've just done a new branding, and it's a nice new image that we've got on our slide templates. But another is that we can kind of sometimes feel very much in the dark about a situation, not quite know how to work out the best way forward, and sometimes people's perception of reality can be different. So when I was thinking about presenting to you, I decided to come along yesterday to try and get a little bit of a feel for the group and where you were at around these issues. And I guess I can say that I could pretty much repeat some of the points from the panel discussion yesterday morning as the things that seem to me to be the most important in dealing with mental health issues and difficult candidature situations. So some of those things were, it's easy to get sucked into troubling issues. Don't rush. Talk to a couple of people. From humility comes leadership. I'm not King Solomon, and don't come across as being the Messiah. And also a suggestion that we need to triage situations that come up. So I thought about the situation here at UTS and how it's such an incredibly resource-rich environment. My background is in mental health in the public mental health sector before I came into university as the head of counselling here about 17 years ago. And compared to the resources that we have here, that was a very impoverished system. So I think we're all very lucky in terms of the extent of resources that we have at the university, and there's really so many of those resources that we can rely on to help us in these sorts of situations. So I've listed just some of the supports there, the rules and legislation, the other staff, the resources such as money, accommodation, etc. that the university has, and our links with external supports and management within the university as well. I guess the main thing is sharing the load and when to do that. And if you look at this list here, from my experience, there's a lot of situations which meet these criteria. Particularly if there's a safety issue, then I certainly don't want to be alone in dealing with it. Obviously, if it goes beyond my expertise, then my registration guidelines say I must consult more widely. It's a really good indication if I'm feeling uncomfortable that it might be a good idea for me to consult. If I'm very involved with a student and it's starting to bring up issues for myself about my personal life, or gee, that person's just like my daughter, or that same situation happened to me, then I'm beginning to think that my degree of objectivity is probably being compromised. So that's a situation. And then, of course, if there are reputational risks or liability concerns, which there so frequently are, you just heard the comment about there being legal implications. Well, so much of what we do in the university now, there are legal implications. So to go into when I thought about you as a group, and part of the brief that I picked up, correctly or not, was that some of you are considering going into the role of being the dean of a graduate school, and that might seem to be a lonely role, and that you might think that you need to take responsibility for everything in going into that role. And so what I heard yesterday, those points that I've reiterated, and my own experience is that that would be really tough to do that, and so I'd really recommend sharing the load. Some of the things that we have on our side in terms of the rules and regulation, you'll have your university rules and code of conduct. When students come into UTS, certainly coursework students, I'm not actually sure about research students, but there is a student declaration that they sign that says they're going to abide by the rules and the code of conduct. So that's, our legal department tell us that's a contract that we have with the student. And so then we have all the university rules that students are obliged to comply with. We also have the Federal Disability Discrimination Act that we need to comply with, and the anti-discrimination law. And I'd say, because there are education standards that group, and answering that question, they would be able to refer to the education standards for disability and look at the idea of inherent requirements and reasonable accommodations, and get an opinion from, as you said, from the, well, you talked about it as an equity issue. Here at UTS, our structure is that we have an equity and diversity unit, and so we would pull in those people to discuss about this and make sure that the action we were thinking was something that there was a bit of a consensus on. We have to comply with privacy. You also mentioned that in the response to that case study. You talked about not necessarily sharing information about the condition that the person had while trying to work out how to accommodate the condition. And it's a really important thing to consider. Again, we have a person that we can consult within the university. We have a couple. We have a privacy officer who obviously specialises in that area. And again, we have our legal department. And I've been in court in NCAT about a privacy issue. I'm happy to say that we won. But a considerable amount of university resources went into that, and we were really relieved that we had in fact considered all those privacy issues at the outset when a particular difficult student matter came up, and we recorded our decisions about privacy at that point. And so that matter is a particularly difficult student matter. It's in the public realm, that finding, but we are still as a university engaged with that person as somebody who might come into the category of a querulent complainant. There's a really excellent article by Lester and Mullins about querulent complainants, and that suggests that with somebody who is on a quest for justice and who believes that they are absolutely right and that they are being done wrong by the university, it's very, very difficult to argue the case with them. You can argue the case, in fact, till you're blue in the face, but it won't necessarily make any difference. And so what that article recommends is that you really start to talk to the person about the cost-benefit to them of pursuing their course of action and trying to seek out justice against the university. We tried that with this person and that failed as well, and that person is really costing themselves a lot by pursuing this currently from overseas against the university, and now we're looking at another court case. Share the load is the message. Use the reports, and here's a few resources that you may be interested in. It's the Managing Unreasonable Complainant Conduct is a great resource from the Ombudsman that has incredibly detailed suggestions about how to deal with matters on the phone and in person. The disability standards that I've mentioned, and there's a series called Good Decision Making in Government that comes out from Clayton Utz, the law firm. That's a series of pamphlets and has some great stuff on natural justice, because we can be tempted to bring the hammer down because it seems like obviously the most sensible thing to do, but sometimes we can get picked up later because our processes haven't been natural justice processes. So that's what I had to say, and